Here's a stat that has already changed the world, and most people haven't noticed. A few years ago, for the first time in human history, the number of people on Earth over the age of 65 surpassed the number of children under the age of 5. That quiet tipping point is now an earthquake. While our global population just passed 8 billion, dozens of countries are now shrinking. Some are losing the equivalent of an entire city's worth of people every single decade. The reasons why are complex and urgent. Ultra-low birth rates, mass emigration, the lingering wounds of war, and even the rising oceans. Today, we're counting down 12 of the fastest shrinking countries heading into 2026 and uncovering the very different stories behind their decline. Before we jump in, a quick but important note. Demographic numbers are a moving target. Figures from the UN, the World Bank, and national governments can vary slightly. So, for our purposes, the exact ranking is less important than the trend. And that trend is driven by the same powerful forces you'll see again and again. A birth rate that's too low to replace the current population, an aging society where deaths outpace births, and migration patterns that see more people leaving than arriving. The formula might sound simple, but each country's story is unique. 12. Croatia. We start on the stunning Adriatic coast. Medieval cities, brilliant blue waters, and a demographic slide that's been going on for years. Croatia's recipe for decline has 3 main ingredients. First, a low fertility rate stuck well below the 2.1 children per woman needed just to keep the population stable. Second, an aging population. Like many of its neighbors, Croatia now sees more funerals than births most years. And third, opportunity. When Croatia joined the European Union, it gave its citizens the freedom to work anywhere. For many skilled workers, the higher-paying jobs in Germany, Austria, and Ireland were too good to pass up. The government in Zagreb is trying to turn the tide. They've boosted family benefits, offered housing support, and are actively courting Croatians abroad to return home. But the math is unforgiving. Unless net migration turns solidly positive, Croatia's gentle decline is set to continue through the 2020s. 11. Serbia. Just next door, Serbia has been shrinking for decades. The scars of the 1990s wars accelerated a trend that was already underway. The biggest driver here is emigration. For a generation, young graduates have looked to the EU and beyond for better opportunities, creating a relentless brain drain. This exodus combines with a chronically low fertility rate and one of the oldest populations in Europe. The result is a powerful, self-reinforcing cycle of decline. Fewer young people means fewer births and a smaller workforce to build the economy that might convince the next generation to stay. Belgrade's government is fighting back. They've introduced cash bonuses for new parents, subsidized IVF treatments, and are making efforts to raise wages. But here's the catch. A baby bonus is a one-time payment. A high-paying, stable job is a reason to build a life. Without more of those jobs at home, the exit door will continue to look more attractive than the nursery. 10. Bosnia and Herzegovina. A land of breathtaking mountains and deep river canyons, Bosnia and Herzegovina is also home to one of Europe's steepest talent drains. The numbers are stark. In recent polls, nearly half of all young people between 18 and 29 said they were considering moving abroad for work. The country has struggled with a natural population decrease, more deaths than births, almost every year since the devastating war of the 1990s. And a complex, fragmented system of governance often slows down the economic and social reforms that could convince young people their future lies at home. The potential is there. Even modest gains in wages, infrastructure, and public services could begin to bend the curve. But until then, the powerful combination of emigration and aging means the country is projected to keep shrinking. 9. Bulgaria. If you were writing a textbook on rapid population loss in the 21st century, you might use Bulgaria as a case study. Since its post-communist peak, the country has lost over 20% of its population, a staggering decline in peacetime. The reasons are classic: a fertility rate among the lowest in Europe, combined with a high median age, and decades of out-migration as working-age adults, especially the highly educated, left for other EU countries. This has had a visible effect on the landscape, hollowing out the countryside and leaving entire villages sparse or even empty. But there is some softer good news on the horizon. In recent years, wages have been rising faster than the EU average, and during the pandemic, a surprising number of Bulgarians chose to return home. The critical question is whether that return migration will stick. If it does, it could slow the decline. If not, Bulgaria remains one of Europe's fastest shrinking states. 8. Latvia. The modern, dynamic skyline of Latvia's capital, Riga, can't hide the demographic reality. Like its Baltic neighbors, Latvia is caught in a demographic vice. On one side, you have natural decrease, a fertility rate below replacement level plus an older population structure. On the other, you have EU mobility, which creates a steady stream of people moving to higher pay countries in Western and Northern Europe. Latvia's response has been forward-thinking. The state is leaning into digital-first public services and a booming tech sector that helped push significant wage growth, aiming to make staying home a more attractive proposition. If net migration can stabilize and the birth rate edges up, the slide can slow. But for now, the 2020s remain a demographic crunch for this Baltic nation. 7. Lithuania. Lithuania's story comes with an asterisk. It's the Baltic turnaround story. Maybe. Through the 2000s and 2010s, Lithuania saw one of the sharpest population drops in the world, driven by heavy emigration and low births. But then, something started to change. In the 2020s, as wages rose and the tech sector in Vilnius boomed, net migration briefly turned positive. More people were arriving, including returning Lithuanians, than were leaving. The challenge is that the underlying demographics are still tough. The age structure still leans older, and fertility remains low. Lithuania offers a test case. Can a country truly reverse a steep decline? If high-skilled immigration and return migration continue, it could flatten its downtrend faster than almost any of its neighbors. It's a story to watch. 6. Greece. In Greece, the tourism industry is booming. The population is not. The country is facing a demographic storm created by two distinct events. First, a very low fertility rate, which has hovered around 1.3 to 1.4 for years. And second, the legacy of the severe financial crisis of the 2010s. That economic depression pushed hundreds of thousands of young, ambitious Greeks to move abroad. Today, the economy has stabilized and some are returning, but not in numbers large enough to offset the natural decrease from more deaths than births. The government in Athens is experimenting with a suite of policies: new child allowances, tax breaks for families, and an expansion of public childcare. But in the long term, like so many countries on this list, Greece's demographic future will likely be decided by its approach to immigration. 5. Italy. La dolce vita, the sweet life, is meeting the world's gray wave. Italy has long been a poster child for population aging. It boasts one of the lowest birth rates on Earth, and the average age for a woman to have her first child just keeps rising. This, combined with a high median age, means the country is locked into years of more deaths than births. On top of this, deep economic gaps between the industrial north and the more rural south, plus soaring housing costs, push young people to be mobile, and often that means moving abroad. The Italian government has rolled out a flurry of pro-family policies, baby bonuses, tax cuts on essentials like diapers, and new housing incentives. But the demographers are blunt. The momentum is too powerful. Without a sustained large-scale increase in immigration, Italy's population decline is projected to continue right through the 2030s. 4. Japan. Japan was the pioneer. It was one of the first major countries to experience population aging and decline. Now, that decline is accelerating. For years, its total fertility rate has been near or below 1.3, among the world's lowest for a large nation. The country has a record share of citizens over 65. In rural prefectures, this trend is hollowing out entire towns, closing schools, and leaving infrastructure with nobody to maintain it. For decades, the megacity of Tokyo acted like a demographic magnet, pulling in youth from all over the country. But now, there aren't enough young people left to pull. The Japanese government is tackling this from all angles, easing visa restrictions for skilled foreign workers, investing heavily in robotics and automation for elder care, and funding a massive expansion of childcare and housing support. But the trend for the 2020s is clear: continued national decline, mitigated only by how much migration the country chooses to accept and how much productivity it can squeeze from a smaller workforce. 3. South Korea. We now move from a demographic challenge to a demographic emergency. South Korea went from a miracle economy to the world's most extreme case of population decline. For several years running, it has recorded the lowest total fertility rate on the planet. The latest figure was a shocking 0.72. That's not just below replacement level. it's less than a third of it. The reasons are a subject of intense national debate. Crushing costs for housing and private education, a notoriously long hours work culture, and intense social pressures that make having a family feel like an economic impossibility for many. The consequences are already here. Classrooms are being closed and merged. Universities are struggling to find students. Rural towns are emptying out. The government in Seoul is throwing everything it has at the problem. Huge cash payments for births, expanded childcare, housing perks for newlyweds, and attempts at work-life balance reform. But many fear it's too little, too late. Unless fertility stages a miraculous rebound or immigration is scaled up dramatically, South Korea's decline is set to accelerate. 2. China. Our next country isn't shrinking at the fastest rate, but its decline is the biggest story by sheer world-changing scale. After decades of astonishing growth, China's population has peaked and is now falling, years, if not a decade earlier than most experts once expected. The reasons are a direct legacy of its past policies. The one-child policy, enforced for decades, created a society with fewer women of childbearing age today. Now, that combines with the same pressures seen elsewhere: rising costs in hyper-competitive cities and a desire for smaller families. The government has performed a complete 180. After decades of limiting births, Beijing is now offering subsidies, housing support, and a constant stream of pro-family messaging. Some provinces are even paying bonuses for second or third children. But demographic momentum is like turning a giant ship. Even with these massive policy shifts, virtually all demographers expect China's population to continue its natural decrease through the 2030s and beyond. A smaller China means a different world for us all. 1. Marshall Islands. For our number one spot, we go from one of the world's largest nations to one of its smallest, because the fastest rates of decline often happen where unique pressures are at their most extreme. The Marshall Islands is a small Pacific nation facing outsized risks. First, there's a unique migration agreement. The Compact of Free Association allows its citizens to live and work in the United States, creating a constant, easy path for immigration. But the second driver is existential: climate change. For a low-lying atoll nation, sea level rise isn't a future threat, it's a present reality. Saltwater intrusion poisons farmland. King tides flood homes. The long-term viability of the islands themselves is in question. This reality pushes a steady stream of people, especially the young, to relocate. Leaders are investing in seawalls, freshwater solutions, and climate-resilient jobs, but they're fighting against the physics of a warming planet. For now, outmigration is the nation's safety valve, and unless the global fight against climate change scores a major victory, a continued decline seems inevitable. So, as we look across this diverse list of countries, from Balkan states to Asian tigers to Pacific Islands, you see 4 repeating forces at work. 1. Ultra-low fertility, driven by later marriages, the high cost of raising children in modern cities, and a cultural shift towards smaller families. 2. Aging. Large older generations, a legacy of the baby booms of the 20th century, mean that on a national level, deaths are now outpacing births. 3. Migration. In a connected world, young and skilled workers will always chase higher wages and greater stability, creating a brain drain from developing economies. And 4. Shocks. These are the wild cards: a war, a natural disaster, or a slow-moving crisis like climate change that can suddenly and dramatically nudge people to leave. So, can anything be done? The answer is yes, but there's no magic bullet. No single baby bonus can fix a decades-long trend. The policies that actually move the needle tend to be a comprehensive package, a full-court press. Things like making housing and childcare truly affordable, so families don't have to choose between a home and a child, ensuring predictable work hours and career security, and building welcoming, efficient immigration systems that don't just attract talent, but retain it. Crucially, it's about creating jobs outside the capital cities, so people don't have to leave their hometowns to build a future. Slowing decline is hard. Reversing it is even harder. But the countries that succeed will be the ones that make it easier for the people to build the lives they want, wherever they are. Which country's story surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to Around the World for more videos about geography and the forces that shape our world every single week. Thanks for watching.